Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines this evening. Ivory Coast's former President Laurent Gbagbo is set to return home after 10 years in exile. The decision to go home came after his acquittal on charges of crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court. More on that coming up. Tensions remain high between Chad and the Central African Republic after 6 Chadian soldiers were shot on the country's southern border. Chad is accusing its southern neighbour of war crimes. South Africa returns to harsher lockdown measures, this after a sharp rise in cases of COVID-19. Cities such as Johannesburg and Pretoria are facing a third wave of the virus. Thanks for watching now. Former Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo plans to return home on the 17th of June. This according to his party. The decision follows his acquittal on charges of crimes against humanity. Should Bagbo indeed return to Ivory Coast, he'll have to navigate a previous 20-year sentence given to him in absentia back in November 2019. Bagbo's successor, President Alassane Ouattara, said in April that his rival was free to return from The Hague. The decision about his homecoming was announced in front of a crowd that had come to celebrate the former president's birthday in Abidjan. Liane de Bassompierre is in Abidjan. Earlier, she spoke to France 24.
It's very interesting, in fact, because it's been 2 months since the International Criminal Court upheld the acquittal that was made in 2019. So it's been very interesting that there's been a committee that's been set up between government members and his party members and other Bagbo sympathizers. And they've used the last 2 months to his homecoming. And just last week, his party, the FBI, had a press conference, and they in fact said that governments would be announcing. So it remains to be seen what this announcement today actually means, because they've really jumped the gun, because government was supposed to make the announcement so they could have a smooth transition of him coming back to Ivory Coast. We have the dates. I don't see the government now saying that he's coming back on another date. It is going to be June 17th. His lawyer, Habiba Toure, also confirming that date today. And of course, Bagbo has enjoyed many years of support by Ivorians that are close to his party and others. But there's also still a sense of there's not been justice served for what's happened in Ivory Coast. And in a time where after he had refused to concede defeat to President Alassane Ouattara. So he's previously said that he wants to take part in a reconciliation process. And it's up to the ruling party now to make some kind of announcement on what is next. Of course, he does still face 20 years in jail for charges that were brought against him in Ivory Coast. That was for looting the local branch of the Central Bank of West African States. He was tried in absentia, and he does still face 20 years behind bars on those charges.
Chadian authorities are not mincing their words, calling it a war crime and saying it won't go unpunished. They're accusing Central African soldiers of abducting and executing 6 Chadian soldiers at a border post between the two countries. Central African authorities have tried to calm those tensions. A press release mentioned brotherly relations between the two countries while putting the blame for the soldiers' deaths on rebels. That press release also called for a joint investigation with Chad. Clément Duromain has more.
The Chadian Ministry of Foreign Affairs accuses the Central African Republic of a premeditated operation which will not go unpunished following the attack of an outpost near the border by Central African forces, which allegedly left 6 dead in the Chadian army. On the Central African side, the government is trying to defuse the situation, which would be, I quote, an unfortunate misunderstanding. According to the Foreign Ministry, the exchange of fire took place during the pursuit of rebel troops at the border by the National Army and its allies in the extreme northwest of the CAR.
Ces échanges ont malheureusement provoqué des morts côté centrafricain et tchadien, semant ainsi la désolation, une fois encore, du fait des actions de la CPC. Le gouvernement tchadien a été informé de la proposition de la mise en place d'une mission d'enquête conjointe.
A government mission should leave for N'Djamena to begin discussions with Chad, and an attempt at regional mediation is being set up right now. Tensions remain high at the border. According to security sources, Chadian troops have entered the Central African Republic and occupy the locality of Gaoudai near the border. The information is for the moment denied on the Central African side. Several months now, the Central African government has sought to ease tensions with Chad, calling it a brother country. The re-elected President Touadéra had also gone to N'Djamena at the end of April to attend Idriss Déby's funeral.
To Somaliland next, where voters in the self-declared republic cast their ballots on Monday. Authorities there are keen to demonstrate that peaceful elections can be held in the troubled Horn of Africa. More than 1 million voters were registered for parliamentary and local elections in the breakaway northwest region of Somalia. It declared independence 30 years back, but so far lacks international recognition. The West African regional bloc, Ecowas, has suspended Mali's membership following the country's second military coup in 9 months. On Sunday, leaders of the bloc gathered in Ghana for an emergency summit to discuss the political crisis that they say threatens Mali's stability. Emmanuel Macron has warned that France would withdraw its troops from Mali if the country lurches towards radical Islamism under the leadership of Assimi Goïta. Now, for more on how that might play out, here's Professor Douglas Yates of the American Graduate School in Paris.
I don't think it would be a very good idea for France to pull out its troops, but it's understandable that he would make the threat. The idea is to try to control the behavior of the coup through making threats. I think France is in a Cornelian dilemma. On the one hand, it has loyalty to its partners in the war on terror, and that includes the military who have staged this coup. And on the other hand, it has a love for democracy and an image of love for democracy, which also has to be protected in Africa. But here, Macron's going to have to choose where France's national interests lie. And I do believe that they probably lie rather with the war on terror. Mali is in a vortex with jihadists in the north, with an independence movement of Tuaregs in the north, and with now civilians protesting in the streets and the military staging a coup, and civilians who often, when they get into power, use it simply to distribute wealth, a lot of which is aid. So trying to control these kernels indirectly through threats is, I think, what the meeting in Ghana this weekend was about. And so the first round is the African Union sanctions Mali by removing it from its institutions. It's not very harmful to the regime, but it shows that action may follow threats.
Now, it has been described as Africa's most active volcano, and volcanologists are keeping a close eye on Nyamuragura in the Democratic Republic of Congo, close to its border with Rwanda. Now, it's located near Mount Nyiragongo, another volcano that has been spewing ash for over a week now. Hundreds of thousands have been forced to flee their homes in and around the city of Goma, adjacent to those volcanoes. Nicolas Germain has the story.
This is the Nyamuragira volcano. It's nicknamed the smaller brother of the Nyiragongo, which erupted 10 days ago and left more than 30 people dead. In this context, experts are keeping a close eye on the smaller volcano.
Son activité, on la comprend soit avec une activité des données visuelles, donc vraiment, tu prends des photos, tu fais marcher les drones, tu prends des photos dans le temps pour comprendre l'évolution à l'intérieur du cratère. Soit tu prends des échantillons de lave, des échantillons de gaz. Encore, il y a toute la sismologie.
This smoke is coming out of the bigger Nyiragongo volcano. Its eruption on May the 22nd has forced more than 400,000 people to flee the city of Goma. Many have arrived in the town of Sake.
Na makolo, totambola na makolo. To bimimba nka bujukana mnine pelaka, butu botina bana nde tokomaka na tongo.
Many displaced people have to sleep outdoors, and local authorities fear a risk of infection by cholera.
Vous voyez, quand les gens ne sont pas abrités, ils sont exposés à beaucoup d'intempéries. Ils peuvent avoir beaucoup de maladies. Et puis, comme il y a un afflux massif de gens, le fait d'être nombreux ensemble, ça peut aussi provoquer beaucoup de maladies.
The Congolese government is facing a major humanitarian crisis in a region that has already suffered so much from the violence of armed groups these last 3 decades.
To South Africa next, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced his country will return to stricter lockdown measures. This follows a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases. Official figures are 31% higher this past week than the week before. Sam Bradpiece has all the latest.
4 out of 9 South African provinces are now wrestling with a deadly third wave of coronavirus, and it's only a matter of time before the entire country finds itself in a similar situation. In an effort to deal with this, the President Cyril Ramaphosa announced a wave of new restrictions on Sunday night. Among them, the closing of restaurants and bars such as this one as of 10 p.m. onwards every single night. So we're going to go inside and find out what people actually think about these new restrictions.
Now with the new curfew, we have to go last round's 2:45, close at 9:30, be out here by 10. And it's really because that's the time when we make our tips from the customers to survive. You know, so it's not nice. It's going to be very hard now.
The customers seem to agree.
I think it's absolutely going to be, it's not good.
It does suck, pretty much. Yeah.
It is difficult. It doesn't make sense. But what can we do?
During the first 3 months of 2021, the number of business liquidations increased by 78.6% compared to the same period last year. Now, the hospitality sector, bars, restaurants, has been particularly badly hit, although it's worth remembering that South Africa remains the worst impacted country on the continent when it comes to coronavirus deaths. More than 56,000 people have died so far, and that's according to the official figures. The actual number is likely much, much higher.
That's all for this edition of Eye on Africa. Thanks for watching. More news to follow.